Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going super interesting. We've got an article all about Honey Boo Boo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know Alana Thompson,
Uh-huh.
and it's all about her weight loss journey.
Okay.
So I know you're probably thinking like, oh, Honey Boo Boo, reality TV star, like we've heard this story before.
Yeah.
But this one actually gets into some pretty interesting territory. It's not just about like dropping pounds or anything like that.
Hmm.
It gets into like the methods she used and like kind of the implications for her life and stuff like that. So
That's really interesting.
yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. And one of the things that really caught my eye is she actually underwent a procedure called endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of that, yes. It's also known as ESG.
ESG, okay.
Yeah.
So that's like a surgery, right?
Well, it is a procedure, but it's considered less invasive than a traditional gastric bypass.
Okay.
So rather than like surgically removing a portion of the stomach, they use an endoscope to place a kind of sleeve inside the stomach
Oh,
to reduce the
well,
volume.
they're like shrinking it from the inside.
Exactly.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so the idea is that, it helps with appetite control and portion management. With a smaller stomach, you feel full faster and naturally eat less.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But before we get like too far down that road,
Sure.
I think it's good to take a step back. And, you mentioned that this story goes beyond just, the weight loss part.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So, we have to remember her journey. She rose to fame at a very young age.
Yeah, toddlers and tiaras.
Exactly. Toddlers and tiaras. And, she's publicly struggled with her weight, for quite a while. So this is someone who, this is a long-standing health challenge for her.
It's not just someone hopping on the latest trend.
Exactly.
Wow.
This is her really taking control.
Yeah, that really puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, the ESG is a pretty big turning point.
Yeah.
But did she just kind of like rely on that, or did she also make lifestyle changes and stuff like that?
Well, she actually took a three-pronged approach. So ESG was a part of it,
Okay.
but she also, significantly changed her diet and exercise routine as well.
But it's not just like a mad bullet,
Exactly.
even with someone like that.
It's a tool,
Right.
not a complete solution.
Okay.
Has to be, part of a larger picture.
That makes sense. So I'm curious, like, what did those lifestyle changes actually look like for her? Like, are we talking like salads and kale smoothies 24/7?
Well, not exactly all leafy greens, but she did make a shift toward healthier choices.
Okay.
So trading processed foods and sugary drinks.
So like chips and soda.
Yeah,
Okay.
for, things like protein fruits and vegetables, healthy fats.
So like Greek yogurt and nuts, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
finding healthier alternatives that you can enjoy.
Makes sense.
It's not about deprivation,
Mm-hmm.
but, just making sustainable changes.
Okay, I like that. I like that philosophy. But you said there were 3 parts, right?
That's right.
So ESG, the diet. What about exercise?
Yeah, so she incorporated a mix of cardio strength training and core workouts
Wow.
into her routine.
So she's just really going for it.
Yeah, she really wanted to not just lose weight, but, build strength and improve her overall fitness.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about like building that healthy foundation.
Exactly.
But okay, let's be real here. Like, what kind of results are we talking about?
Well, the before and after photos are pretty dramatic.
Okay.
She's estimated to have gone from about 275 pounds down to 170,
Wow.
and she's maintained that into 2025.
Wow.
So,
That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's only 4'11".
Right.
That's a big change proportionally.
yeah,
So ESG, the diet changes the exercise. It sounds like she really like committed to this like full transformation.
absolutely. And it's a testament to the fact that, lasting change often requires a multifaceted approach.
Yeah,
There's rarely just one solution. It's about what works best for the individual
I like that.
and their circumstances.
That's a good point. Okay, so before we move on, there's one more detail I think is kind of interesting to bring up.
Okay.
Her Mama June also had weight loss surgery
Oh, that's right.
a few years back, so I wonder if that played a role at all.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, having a family member who's gone through something similar
Yeah,
could definitely influence her choices.
for sure, for sure.
Shared experiences like that are powerful.
Definitely something to think about. All right, so we've kind of laid the groundwork here. We've talked about her decision to pursue the EFG. The lifestyle changes the results,
Uh-huh.
but I get the feeling that there's more to this story, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot more to unpack here. This is more than just a personal transformation. It raises some interesting questions about the evolving landscape of weight loss, the accessibility of these procedures, and the influence of these personal stories.
Yeah. Okay, I'm all ears.
All right, so let's dive into those deeper layers in part 2.
Sounds good. All right, so we talked about how Honey Boo Boo's weight loss journey isn't just like your typical before and after kind of thing.
Right.
And that it brings up some bigger questions about like how we approach weight loss now, especially with these procedures like ESG becoming more available.
What I think is so interesting is that it really seems like her story is hitting a nerve. Like, it's sparked all these conversations about body image and societal pressures and even like the ethics of medical intervention.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely got people talking because, I mean, on the one hand, you see this like really empowering story, taking control of her health at these amazing results. But then it's hard not to wonder, like, what's the message it's sending, especially to young people? Like,
Right.
Are we setting up these unrealistic expectations?
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. And I think part of it is that we see a lot of these transformations presented in a very like simplified way,
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a quick fix.
Yeah.
But it's so much more complex than that.
Right. Like we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
Honey Boo didn't just get the ESG. She made all these other changes to her diet and her exercise routine.
Exactly. And that's such a crucial part that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
These procedures, they're not magic.
Right.
They work best when they're part of a larger commitment to healthy habits.
Right. And I imagine that commitment can be tough, especially for someone who like grew up in the public eye,
Yo, for sure.
constantly being scrutinized for their appearance.
Yeah, and she's still so young.
Yeah.
She's dealing with the same pressures and insecurities as everyone else her age.
Totally.
Plus the added layer of fame. That's a lot.
Yeah, so how do we like reconcile these two sides? Like on the one hand, it's empowering, she's taking charge of her health, but on the other hand, there's that potential for those unrealistic expectations, especially for younger people.
Right? I think it comes down to just having more open and honest conversations about it,
Yeah.
acknowledging that there's no easy solution.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's journey is going to be different.
Right, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach to weight loss.
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another.
Yeah.
You have to find what's sustainable and healthy for you as an individual.
And it's about more than just like the number on the scale, right?
Absolutely.
It's about your mental well-being.
Right. Self-esteem, your relationship with your body.
Yeah, you're hitting on something important there because even though so much of the focus has been on like the physical transformation,
Yeah.
it seems like Honey Boo Boo is experiencing like a boost in confidence too.
Oh, for sure. You can just see that shift in her.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the fact that sometimes when you address like a physical concern, it can positively impact other areas of your life as well.
But I think we also have to be real about the financial side of things too, because we mentioned that she has this estimated net worth of like $500,000.
Right.
It makes you wonder how much of her platform is now tied to her weight loss journey.
Yeah, it's a valid question. And it has become increasingly common for people to leverage their personal experiences,
Yeah.
especially involving these kinds of transformations,
Uh-huh.
to
Yeah.
build a brand and, generate income.
Right. And in a way, it makes sense. People are drawn to these stories.
Yeah.
They want to learn. They want to find inspiration.
Yeah.
But there's also this line where it becomes about like profiting from something that's so personal and sensitive.
Right. And that's where those ethical considerations come in. It's
Yeah.
a delicate balance between sharing your story authentically and potentially exploiting it.
Yeah, it's tricky, especially when you think about influencer culture
Right.
and how those messages get amplified and sometimes distorted.
Exactly. We're in this age where everyone has a platform.
Yeah,
The lines are getting blurred,
totally.
So it's more important than ever to really be critical about
Yeah.
the information you're consuming.
Right, to think about those motivations.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us with Honey Boo Boo? How do we sort of reconcile her personal success with the broader implication of her story?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge the nuance of it. There's no easy answers. There's no simple solutions.
Yeah.
These stories could be really powerful and inspiring, but we have to view them critically. Consider the context,
Yeah.
the motivations, the potential impact.
That's a good point. It brings us to another layer of this conversation we haven't even touched on yet,
What's that?
which is like the ethical considerations around the ESG itself.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge topic.
Right, we could do a whole other deep dive on that.
Absolutely.
But before we jump ahead, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay.
We've been talking about all these societal pressures around weight and body image,
Uh-huh.
especially for young people.
Yeah.
Do you think procedures like ESG are contributing to that problem, or do you think they could actually offer a solution?
That's a really complex question.
Yeah,
And it's hard to give like a definitive answer.
right.
But I think one thing that's important to remember is that all of this exists within a larger context.
Yeah.
This society that prioritizes thinness
Uh-huh.
and kind of equates it with health and beauty.
Right. It's like we're always looking for that quick fix.
Yeah.
That we forget about the bigger picture, like those underlying issues of body image.
Right.
And
Self-acceptance.
the pressure to conform. And
Yeah.
so these medical advancements, while they can offer like valuable tools,
Sure.
they don't really address the root causes
Right.
of those societal pressures.
Absolutely. And that's a conversation that we need to keep having
Yeah.
alongside any discussion about weight loss.
Right. Okay. So I think we've laid some good groundwork here.
Yeah.
We've explored Honey Boo Boo's journey, all the changes she's made, the results, and then the bigger questions it raises
Yes.
about body image influencer culture, the ethics of it all.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
In part 3, we'll really get into those ethical considerations surrounding ESG, explore the long-term implications of it all, and talk about how technology is changing the way we think about weight loss.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a can't-miss conversation.
It'll be good.
So stay tuned, deep divers.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
With the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so welcome back. We've talked about a lot with this Honey Boo Boo deep dive, but there's one more big thing we got to talk about.
Right, the elephant in the room.
Yeah, what are the ethics of it all?
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to get caught up in the before and after pictures, oh, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
But we got to think, at what cost are we normalizing these medical interventions for weight loss, especially for young people?
It's a really important question, and it's something that's being debated a lot right now.
Yeah.
Because these procedures are becoming more widely available, they're marketed as being less invasive,
right,
quicker recovery times, but
they're still serious.
they are.
Yeah, and we got to think about the downsides.
Absolutely, and even if those risks are minimal, are we sending the right message?
Right.
Especially to a generation that's constantly bombarded with these images of perfect bodies.
Totally. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about body image and the pressure to conform.
Exactly. And the thing is, these procedures don't address the root cause of those pressures.
Right.
They might help some people, but they don't change those underlying messages that contribute to things like body dissatisfaction and eating disorders.
So where's the line? How do we make sure that these procedures are being used responsibly, ethically, and not just slapping a Band-Aid on a bigger problem?
I think it starts with open and honest conversations.
Yeah.
Educating people about the benefits and the risks, the long-term implications, and really emphasizing how important it is to address those underlying issues.
Yeah.
The psychological and the emotional factors.
Right. So we got to shift the focus away from the quick fixes to
Yes.
thinking about sustainable changes,
Right. A more holistic approach.
Yeah.
That includes mental and emotional well-being too.
Totally, because it's not just about the weight. It's
Right.
about your whole self.
Yeah. And honestly, we need to be challenging those societal norms that contribute to weight stigma and body dissatisfaction.
Right.
We need to create a culture that celebrates diversity,
Yeah.
promotes body acceptance, values health and well-being over these unrealistic beauty standards.
I love that. So I think what we're saying is medical advancements can be great. They give us tools, but they're just one part of the whole picture.
Exactly.
It's about giving people the information so they can make their own choices.
Yes.
And creating a world where everyone feels supported and accepted.
Absolutely.
So to wrap up this whole Honey Boo Boo deep dive,
Yeah.
her story really shows us that this weight loss conversation is so much more complicated than we often realize.
Right. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about medical interventions, we have to think about the ethics.
Especially with young people.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about having those tough conversations,
Yeah.
and helping people make choices that put their well-being first.
And remember, whether you're thinking about a procedure like ESG or just trying to figure out what works for you, there are resources out there.
That's a good point.
Talk to healthcare professionals, talk to your loved ones.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a wild ride.
It has.
Full of twists and turns. I feel like we've learned a lot.
Me too.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, everybody's journey is different.
That's true.
What matters is that you're prioritizing your health,
Absolutely.
both mentally and physically.
Could not agree more.
All right, that's it for us. See you next time. ESUM.